Lukas, thank you so much for being with us today on Wake the F Up. I suppose you already read the title of the channel before. It's funny to have this sort of title because it's part of the raising consciousness. And part of raising
Mm,
consciousness is talking about topics that are very different, very diverse, and very, you know, I'd say makes you think, makes you reflect on the universe, on your life, and so on. And
mm.
so I'm excited about this because you are the first physicist on the channel with a very scientific background, mostly in quantum physics. I'll let you talk about yourself in a minute. So I'm just super excited about this. Let's see how we can make the link between sort of consciousness and physics. That was the main topic of your book, right? Uh, Quantum physics for hippies.
One question in between, like if you say what wake the f up, you mean wake
Yeah,
the
sure.
fuck up, no? Can I curse on this podcast?
Of course you can. Yeah, of course.
Nice, perfect.
Everything is allowed here. So Lucas, please tell us more about you first, and then we go to more fun topics about the universe.
Yeah, well, I'm a quantum physicist. Like I do research in fundamental quantum mechanics in Vienna with the group of
Mhm,
Markus Aspelmeier, and what we are trying to do finally is to generate quantum states of macroscopic objects, so that they are basically in two places at once at the same time.
mhm,
And the goal is to have these objects to be as massive as possible, such that they can interact via gravity. So this would be like a way to test whether quantum mechanics is more fundamental, or, for example, the general theory of relativity from Einstein, which describes like the effect of the curvature of space-time and gravity, because nobody yet knows how these two theories fit together, basically. And
yeah.
we have like an idea how to test it. I'm also a father. I have two kids. Now my time is quite limited because of, well, family and two kids. So my main hobby is basically my family right now. So then I'm a theoretical physicist. So that means I think a lot and I walk a lot.
Mhm,
I love nature, just going out into nature. Also love traveling. But well, with family is not so easy. Like I traveled a lot when I was single. Um, Seeing the world, see different cultures. I'm very excited about different maps of realities, like how you can perceive the world and how you can navigate the world with different views, with different world views. And I'm quite interested also in like philosophy, Indian philosophy, Eastern philosophy. I think it's important to make that clear how I define spirituality, which is for me, like, spirituality is sort of like the opposite of a dogmatic process. So what we
yes.
do is you basically, it's more of a destructive process even, because you try to how I see it is you try to destroy or dissipate belief systems
Mhm,
and beliefs about yourself, beliefs about the world, and in the end, it's a process which never stops, I guess. But the idea is to become free of limiting beliefs in the end.
yes.
Breaking out of the prison of like belief systems in the end, or like also like the image of the world or your worldview. And as opposed to that, like spirituality, in Germany we call that esoteric. I'm not sure in the English speaking realm there's a different word for that, but
Yeah.
this is sort of the opposite almost. It's more dogmatic. There are belief systems which are generated, and you
Mhm,
just have to believe it. An
yeah.
example for that would be astrology, for example. Mediums, exactly, yeah. So these are things which you just have to believe, and there's no process involved where you really question, where you ask like deep questions
Mhm,
and really try to be honest with yourself. Um, and like this, and like the spiritual path, in my view, is not an easy path. No, you have to be very careful
yeah.
not to fall in a lot of traps of your mind. There are a lot of traps.
Absolutely
Mm,
interesting. I'm in line with most of what you just said.
mm,
Being on my journey myself for years
mm,
now. So
mhm.
coming back to the physics parts, the science parts.
Hmm.
So, Lucas, to be honest, right? The introduction, I am a scientist. I did physics before, math a lot. So I sort of understand what you're talking about with relativity and, try to combine both theories about mechanics and the quantum physics. I understand because I read a lot of books. But most people would not understand nothing from what you just said in the introduction. So
Okay.
can we make it like super, super simple and tell people what kind of physics there are, like the two parts, just start with the
Mhm.
basics, and then what is the quantum physics about really? Like what's the core of the quantum physics?
I mean, I would probably just start with quantum physics, because I think that's more relevant for today.
Hmm?
So quantum physics describes the behavior of like small particles. Like I think most people maybe know that all of the matter, all of the stuff which is around us, like the stars, our
Hmm.
bodies, even like the chair, even our breath, no, it's made out of small particles. Light is
Yes.
made out of small particles called photons, and these particles they behave a certain way, and that way is described by the theory of quantum physics, by the theory of quantum mechanics. And the interesting thing is that their behavior is very strange. It's not what we would expect.
Strange from
So
what? Compared to what?
to our everyday experience. So
Okay.
it's very hard at the beginning, if you first hear it, to intuitively grasp what's going on. But I will
Hmm.
give my best to explain it in a way that you can
Yeah, very easy
get it clear.
for
Yes.
for a
Yeah.
normal person to understand.
So the first thing, I mean, the first thing which is important to understand is that you cannot really observe the behavior of these particles directly. So it seems like there's a sort of curtain, and
Hmm.
they are playing like a theater behind the curtain, and we can
Interesting.
detect the results of that play, but the moment we pull the curtain away, the theater stops and they do something different. uh,
It's interesting.
and
It's an interesting
and
way to put it.
yes. So I want to stress it's not about us pulling the curtain away or observing. It's about that anything basically observes the theater. And then it seems like they only dance, or they only play their theater, or they do their dance when they are undisturbed. And
Mm-hmm.
what we know is that this dance, what they do, involves some kind of waves. No, how do we know
Okay.
this? Because usually when we talk about small particles like atoms and so on, people think about like small balls, like a small tennis ball or something like that. Huh?
Yeah.
And so there's a very famous experiment in physics with which you can distinguish tennis balls from waves. This is called the double slit experiment. What you basically have is you have like two doors next to each other, or two small windows next to each other, and and now you have to focus on the difference between a wave and a tennis ball. Like the first,
Mm.
like obvious difference is that it's very hard to tell where the wave actually is. Like a wave is spread out. And the tennis ball is very easy to say it's there. No, you
Yeah.
can sort of tell where it is. Another difference is that like a tennis ball can only go through one door at once. No, but a wave can
Mm-hmm.
in principle go to two doors at once. No, if you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine an ocean and you have like two doors floating inside of
Yeah.
the ocean, and the wave going through two doors at once. Then another big difference is that like a tennis ball plus another tennis ball is always two tennis balls. But a wave plus another wave can be nothing. Like they can cancel each other out. And this is, for example, this is how your noise reduction thing works, how like noise canceling works. It's how reflection works. So of
Yeah.
light even. And so in other words, like light plus light can be darkness, and sound plus sound can be silence. And this is and
Interesting.
this is yes, so this is exactly. So we can use these properties of waves to distinguish waves from tennis balls with this double slit experiment. So now if you do this experiment with like electrons, atoms, molecules, even proteins. So this is what I mean with the theater only plays behind the closed curtain. Because
It doesn't want to be seen. Do we have an answer to why is that, or
yes,
not?
there are different views of seeing this.
Mhm.
So the most intuitive, in my opinion, quantum physics, it's about possibilities. So
Mhm.
which coexist, even though they would like contradict each other in our day-to-day experience. For example, in our day-to-day experience, nothing goes through two doors at the same time.
Yeah.
But possibilities can do that. And in quantum mechanics, in quantum physics, these possibilities behave as if they were real. No? And then they dance with each other. They interact with each other. And how do they
Mm.
interact? They interact like waves. So they can cancel each other out at specific positions, and they can enhance each other at specific positions. And that's more or less all what is behind this double slit experiment. So, and in the moment you detect through which door the particle goes, the atom goes, you basically kill the possibility that it's going through the other door.
Mm.
Yeah. And
I
that's
see.
why the pattern disappears. So exactly. So this is also a big question which is not answered by this, is what happens to the other possibility?
Mm.
Oh. And this is also something where physicists don't agree on. Um, if you just take the Schrödinger equation, which is like the heart of quantum mechanics, like this is an equation which predicts all of the quantum experiments, and it's also like it basically is the foundation of all of our modern technology. Like
Mhm.
without that equation, we wouldn't have cell phones, smartphones, even fiber internet would be hard to, yeah, satellites, lasers, no way to build like good lasers.
Yeah.
And also it describes perfectly the behavior of all these small particles. So, and the interesting thing is now if you take this equation seriously and you don't add anything to it, like no mechanism which destroys these other possibilities, they just keep on living. And then we will jump right into it. You would end up with the so-called many words interpretation of quantum mechanics, where all possibilities basically coexist and none of them gets destroyed.
It's
Other
like somehow
than
like the movie, right? What's the name? Everywhere, everything all at once, right? More or less.
I haven't seen it. Yeah,
Yes,
but it's
interesting one.
but it sounds
Yeah.
like the title sounds like it. Exactly. So sort of. Yeah, or like Rick and Morty. But it's a bit different because you can, in principle, those once you interact with those possibilities in a way, like for example, you observe one of them, the other
Mm.
one starts to live their own life, and it's impossible to interact with it again. So it becomes almost impossible to like ever experience that other possibility.
I got the idea that it's a very strange word compared to
Mm,
this word that we see as stable, right? We touch matter, we see, we
mm,
see, we can feel sounds, we can, it's very predictable, right?
mm.
The or quantum world is very unpredictable by design. It's a bunch of possibilities that once observed gets, I would say, balances or goes to the other side of being deterministic and being one position, and the others sort of get lost in a sense or spread in different dimensions. We don't know exactly why or how. Back to your book. Why did you write quantum physics for hippies? Uh, where does this idea come from? And
Mm.
first, and then let's go into the topics that are discussed in the book.
Yes. So the main reason was I was living in Barcelona for 5 years, and
I, I am in Barcelona right now.
you are in Barcelona. Ah, nice.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Nice. Good
Yeah.
choice. Good choice. And Yeah, and there are a lot of hippies in Barcelona, you know,
Yeah, of
probably.
course.
So, and I had a lot of times similar experiences. Like I was going out, and also my colleagues, no, from I was doing my PhD in Barcelona in ICFO, the Institute of
Mm,
Photonic Sciences. So we were like talking with people I don't know, and at some point they would ask me like, what do I do? And I would say, yeah, I research in quantum physics. And the response was very similar all the time. It was sort of like, wow, quantum physics, I can manifest.
mm,
Very common in the spiritual community. Like, as far as like in my experience, if somebody is looking for meaning or for truth or is
yeah.
on some spiritual path or whatever, they will always stumble over quantum physics at some point. Like some book they read, or some comment somebody does is then always about quantum physics. And the problem is that the books, though most hippies and spiritual seekers read, are not written by physicists. They are written by like new age gurus or whatever,
Yeah.
and they are easy to understand, but they are wrong, and
Totally wrong.
they are completely wrong. Yes, and then you have this alternative. You have books who are correct, like were written by nerds, by people like by physicists, but they are very hard to understand because they are full of equations, and
Mm,
maybe like use nerd language, which are very hard to understand. It's just not enjoyable to read them. And so, because like I had these encounters a lot of times, I really wanted to just recommend those people a book or give them a book right away.
mm,
And I was looking for one, and I just couldn't find one which would serve this purpose because, as I said, they were either wrong or too complicated.
yeah.
And that was the main motivation to write that book.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the. I mean, I think it's the case of many books that I've also read. It's not always. I mean, it gives you the impression that it's correct, that it makes sense, to the
Mm.
mind. But as you said, we should always pay attention to what is sort of proven at least, or what is not, right? And just still hypothesis that's made in a certain way that sounds nice to people's ears, but it's not necessarily
Ex-
correct.
Correct. Yes. So, for example, it feels good, if you
Mm.
hear,
Yeah, it
well,
feels good. Yeah.
it feels good if you hear, well, I have powers, um, I can use quantum physics to change the fate of my life to the better by
Mm.
doing, for example, a quantum field meditation or something like that. And and um, and people then tell you, well, if you do this meditation, you can manifest the life of your dreams via quantum physics. And of course, that feels good because it gives you power, you know.
Yeah.
But the problem is that behind this explanation lies this assumption that you can influence quantum experiments or quantum events with consciousness. And these experiments have been done, and there was no effect measurable. Like in the end, in the
I saw.
beginning,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry, Lucas. But I,
yeah, yeah,
during my book as well, the innovative animal
mm,
that I wrote, I did my
mm,
research as well, and
mm,
uh, I saw there is this experiment when I think it's so when you observe the behavior of a laser, or if I don't remember exactly, but basically I think it's the double slit experiment, if I'm not wrong, the same as you mentioned. But when you observe it, it behaves like a particle. When you don't observe it, it behaves like a wave, or vice versa.
mm, mm,
So, and the conclusion of many like people, whatever, is to say that consciousness
mm,
affects matter, right?
mm. Yes.
What do you say about this? And what is consciousness for you? What's the link between
Mm.
consciousness and quantum physics, if you had to make one?
Yes. Okay. Uh, let's let's first talk about this experiment. No.
Yeah.
So it's true if you observe, if you look, if you detect the particle, it behaves different than if you wouldn't detect it. As I just explained also with the slit experiment, no, if you check through which door the particle flies, it behaves like a
Mm,
tennis ball. If you don't, it behaves like a wave. And but the thing is that it does not matter if a human or a consciousness looks. It's sufficient if another atom looks. It's sufficient if a photon looks. So it's not about consciousness, it's about the information. It's about is the information in principle available? Then, for example,
mhm,
you could do this experiment and look and set up a detector which checks through which door a particle flies, and never look at the result. You only look you create a detector which checks through which door the particle flies, and you only look at the
mm,
screen, at the
mhm,
pattern. And still there is the pattern would look like if it were tennis balls. So even though you don't check through which door it flies, so that basically proves that consciousness does not like it's sufficient to have something else observing the particle, and consciousness is not required. However, there were really serious physicists back in the days, like maybe
mhm,
70 years ago or 80 years ago, who took this idea seriously, no? Like who thought like, okay, maybe consciousness is involved because we didn't have this understanding we have right now about decoherence and all this stuff. And they did experiments like with monks, Zen monks, and with meditators, and they put them in the lab, and they try to influence by meditation and by like looking at or with intention or with different techniques outcomes of quantum experiments. And the interesting thing was, or maybe also the funny anecdote is that the first couple of experiments or some of those experiments were even they even found a correlation. However, they had like very few data points, and they were like methodologically not very good. And then these results couldn't be reproduced. And now, like no serious physicist believes this anymore, because
mhm.
these experiments have been done, and it has been shown that the higher the quality of the study, the better, the more it
Yeah,
shows that there was no correlation. Yeah. And so, okay, then the second thing was about consciousness. So, what's the definition of consciousness? In my
yeah. Because I mean,
in my
question
view, yeah.
is important here because,
Hmm.
uh, as you said, if we
Hmm.
put a detector and it observes the particle and it will gives you the information, but ultimately there is some conscious being that is receiving the information and interpreting it, right? Without me being conscious, all these objects around me don't have any meaning in a sense, right?
Right.
So,
Yes. So, yeah. So I would define consciousness as the thing that makes experience possible. Like as a metaphor, something like
mhm,
the screen on which images and experiences appear. So and there you have to make this distinction between consciousness and content of consciousness. No,
mhm,
like consciousness would be the screen itself. Content
yeah,
of consciousness would be everything which appears on the screen, including like your thoughts, your emotions, or like this is all
mhm,
content of consciousness. Your mind is content of consciousness. Um, Consciousness is that which perceives the mind, is that which is the background on which experience happens. And it's very like it's very hard to define it what it is. It's way easier to define it in a way what it not is, because because the moment you say that's it, no,
yeah,
it's not, because
yeah,
in the moment the moment you say it's that or it's this, then this becomes content of consciousness.
yeah. Makes
um
sense.
right, no, so it's sort of it's not. And this definition, I heard this definition from an Indian philosopher, I forgot his name. He said like it's a very elegant definition is would be not this. So whenever you say it's this, it's wrong basically. So it's sort of you have this, you have like the it has basically no properties, because every property would be also be perceived by something, which would
Yeah,
then turn into content of consciousness. So
I like also
in
the saying like,
mm,
uh,
yeah.
I am like I am what I am, or it is what it is, right? Without necessarily pointing what it is.
Exactly. Yes. So I mean, we consciousness is basically the only thing which we cannot deny, sort of, because like this is something we need in order to have experiences. So if we would deny consciousness, the denial would be content of consciousness. And to have content of
But
consciousness, you need
so far,
consciousness in a way, no?
uh,
Yeah.
but so far, science didn't succeed in a sense
Hmm.
to put a model for this consciousness, to use it as part of the
Mhm.
experiments, to consider it, because
Hmm.
since a
Right.
while we're using experiments as studying objects. So there's an object, and you try
Yeah.
to make it
Yeah.
to study it away from human interference, from consciousness interference in a sense, right?
Hmm.
To get objective results, right? So
Right.
what's your view on this? Is it there are some scientists right now that are trying, mostly like in mathematicians, right?
Hmm.
Trying to give some models in a sense to
Hmm.
sort of, you know, sort
Yeah.
of use this consciousness as part of the experiments, but
Yes. So I mean, you're touching here right on the hard problem of consciousness, no? Like
mm,
that it's impossible for us right now to explain consciousness from matter. That we cannot, like, sort of these are these two prevailing views also in neuroscience.
mhm.
First is like consciousness is emergent, so that we can start with the assumption that matter exists and then try to derive consciousness from that. Until now, we haven't succeeded doing this, and there are many people who believe it's impossible because you always have to make one step to explain like how the experiencer comes about. It's sort of, and this is very like this is very hard. That's why it's also called the hard problem of consciousness. No, it's very hard to do
Yeah, and
to, to, to even imagine how this could be possible. How how can matter organize itself in a way that suddenly there, or even like continuously there's sort of experience possible,
mm,
qualia possible, like the to have a way of being something and having to have the experience of feeling a certain way or feeling of being a certain entity or a human or even like an animal, who knows.
yeah, of
And
course, because now it's like every sort
yeah,
of,
yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
I don't know how
Hmm.
a bat feels. I don't know how a dog feels. You know, it's totally
Yeah.
different experience than mine, right?
Yes.
Um, so
Yes.
and even between humans, depending on your level of consciousness, you have different experiences. So
Yes, yes, different experiences, and also and these and because of different sensory input, but also because because you have a different map of reality, because your brain. No, we can talk about this a bit, how perception works on the material level. We
mm,
have like, which is also related a bit to quantum physics in the end, because probably many people know that we have our senses, uh, seeing, touch, tasting and so on, and hearing and smelling. And in the end, we are all interacting just with atoms and light. No? So,
mm,
like if I see, I detect photons. If I touch something, I detect the presence of atoms. If I hear something, I detect vibrations of molecules or atoms. If I smell, I detect different kinds of molecules. And all this stuff, all these molecules and the light, they are all behaving according to the laws of quantum physics. And um,
yeah,
then we have well, this information from our senses is then converted to electricity, and this electricity is going into our brain, and that in our brain it triggers a map of reality, or a map which generates a simulation, and that simulation is projected on the screen of consciousness, which we
mm,
perceive. And so, and we're trying, what we are trying to do, this is like the view, the Western worldview, sort of, how stuff works.
yeah,
But if you ask like a Buddhist, he would say, no, that's entirely wrong. consciousness is fundamental, and matter is basically a derivative of consciousness. So it's not that consciousness is generated inside the brain, it's the other way around. The brain is generated by consciousness, and and because we have the experience of having a body, we have the experience of having a brain, and that's the only thing we can't deny. And
Yeah,
this
it's
kind of
like a
thing,
radio.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
we are a radio for this consciousness, right?
Well, or even sort of like in a dream, no? Like you, because when you dream, you can dream a whole world into existence. You can dream a whole universe into existence. You can dream your body into existence, which walks around and interacts with people. You can dream the experience of touch and smell and whatever into existence. So it's sort of you could. So in this view, consciousness would be, yeah, our experience would be more like a dream, and
Yeah.
consciousness would be sort of like the thing which makes that experience possible. And there are also a lot of scientists who um, who prefer the second view, like that, for example, like that consciousness is more fundamental. And one main reason for that is Occam's razor. Are you familiar with Occam's razor?
No,
Maybe
I don't.
maybe the audience is not familiar. So the Occam's razor is a philosophical principle which helps you to decide which explanation for a specific phenomena is the most likely, or
Mhm.
or the with a lower probability wrong, better said. And
How does it does
so
so?
so it works by so the principle basically says that if your explanation is simple and elegant and has few assumptions, the
Yeah, I know.
probability of it being wrong is lower. And the reason is quite simple, because if you have a lot of assumptions, no, then to make your explanation work, then each assumption has a certain probability of being wrong. And if you have a lot of
Mm.
them, to have all of them right, you have to multiply all these probabilities of being wrong, and then you end up with a very low, very, very, very small number in the end if you have a lot of assumptions. So
Yeah.
now,
So the
if you
simplest it is, the more likely it is to be accurate. So
exactly,
uh,
yeah, the simpler
mhm,
and but you have to focus on not only on the predictions that this your explanation makes, like this is secondary. It's about the assumptions. It's about
mhm,
what you need to believe, how much stuff you need to believe. Basically, you count that,
mhm.
and and if you now have these two views, no, you have these two views of consciousness is fundamental versus matter is fundamental. You can say, okay, I could in principle deny the existence of matter, because in a dream I also have experienced matter, but there is no real matter.
Mhm.
But I cannot deny I cannot deny consciousness, because otherwise the denial would happen inside of consciousness. And so in a way, this Western worldview has one assumption more. So this is one reason
I see.
why scientists and thinkers tend to end up with the second, some of like
Interesting.
a lot of them with the second worldview in the end, no, if they think about it hard. And but this is of course not conclusive, no. Occam's razor only gives you a tendency. It might be wrong in some cases.
Mm.
And also it could also be that both is true at the same time, no, like as like wave and particle.
Yeah, like
It does.
Schrodinger cat, right? Alive and dead at the same time.
So, yes, and as with also with wave and particle duality, like sometimes it behaves like a wave and sometimes like a particle. And actually, I have a really nice metaphor for that. Let me see if I have a cylinder. Here, I have it.
As if it disappeared. It disappeared like the cat of Schrodinger yourself. You
Yeah, yeah,
you
that's the
disappeared.
background, no? You see this? Can you see
Okay.
this? Oh no, it
Uh,
disappears.
pu-
No?
yeah,
Yeah,
put it a bit in front.
yeah.
Yeah, like it's good.
So this
Yeah,
is like a cylindrical shaped object. It's a
yeah.
speaker, Bluetooth speaker. So if I look at it like this, no, it looks like a circle.
Hmm.
If I look at it like this, it looks like a rectangular.
Yeah, true.
But what is it now? Is it a circle or a rectangular? It's it's on the
From my
first side.
perspective, or from from the
If you
objective
want to,
objective perspective.
from the objective perspective, like if I want to, like, there, it seems on the first side that there's a contradiction somehow, but the confusion only comes about, no, if I limit myself to a specific perspective. And in the same way, you can have, like, in the same way, particle, something like a quantum object, and all of matter is something which has sort of something higher dimensional, which we
Mhm.
intuitively have troubles to understand. But what we can perceive are sort of the lower dimensional shadows of it. So sometimes it looks like a wave, sometimes like a particle, and depending on how we look at it. But it is, in reality, it is neither. The same way, this thing is not a circle and it's not a rectangular, it's a cylinder. So it's neither. It's neither a circle, neither a rectangular. No. And
Neither or both at the
yes,
same.
but it's more than both. Yeah, it's both, but you're missing something if you only describe it in terms
Yeah,
of rectangulars and circles. In the same way, consciousness and matter could be basically two different perspectives on the same thing. No?
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting also to see that this idea of duality is
Mm,
was in physics. I mean, it's part of physics, quantum physics mostly,
mm,
but it's also been there for a while in ancient wisdom.
mm,
So, which brings me back to the idea we have duality in ancient wisdom and we have unity, right? So this idea of we are all one, everything is one, and this
mm,
is just a simulation, as you said, an illusion, whatever you want to call it.
mhm.
What is your take on this unity, Lucas? Mostly that I think you wrote about it in your book as well. What is unity from a physicist perspective?
Yes. So this is quite interesting, because we talked a bit in the beginning about this two big theories of physics. No, we have quantum mechanics, which describes almost like, I would say, perfectly the behavior of small particles. And then we also have the general theory of relativity, which describes the big stuff, like how galaxies form and how like matter, large large amount of matter curve space-time. This is and generate gravity with it. And both theories work extraordinarily well. No, like without the general theory of relativity, we like our GPS would not work, for example. Without quantum mechanics, all of our modern technology wouldn't work. And but those two theories, they are very different from the formulation in mathematics. But they have one thing in common. And what they have in common is that they are both holistic theories. So they describe the universe as a whole, as one thing. And for example, yeah. So in other words, what I mean with holistic is that if you would break the universe into parts and analyze its parts, then you miss something. So you can only accurately describe it as a whole, as a one entity. The moment you take it apart, even conceptually, you miss something. You can do you could do good approximations by doing that, and that's how we also calculate stuff, and that's how we build our technology. So like we can do approximations which work very well, but still we are always missing something if you take this equation seriously. So in a way, if you use, for example, if you look at the Schrödinger equation, and if you take that equation to be how the world works, which nobody knows if we are allowed to do that, but this is like the most the most attacked equations we have. So there are a lot of reasons to believe that it has some relationship with reality, at least. If you take that equation, then you would see it is a deterministic equation. And so there is no probability in that equation. First of all, the probability only comes about if we ignore stuff. If we are like, it comes sort of from our ignorance. And the same happens with the equation, or a similar thing happens with the equation of for the general theory of relativity. It describes even like space-time as a unit. So and all matter, which is, and all energies which are inside of, or which are like dancing with space-time as a unit, as one thing. And so so from the physics perspective, from the modern physics perspective, we really have a situation where the best theories we have describe the universe and all of existence as one unity. And even like, not even like in a spatial sense, also like in a timely sense. Not like, for example, I just mentioned that like the general theory of relativity generates out of space and time one thing which is called space-time. And now we have, this is also very interesting because um, we have this kind of perception of time that there is the now, no, and then there is somehow the past, and then there is the future. And but the past does not exist anymore, and the future is yet to come. And also, there's a difference between past and future. Like, for example, I cannot remember the future, but I can remember the past.
It's
However,
like one arrow, the arrow of time, right?
exactly, yes. But the fundamental equations of physics, they don't have this arrow of time. They have, like, they are time symmetric, you call it.
Mhm.
This is the first interesting thing to notice.
Yeah, I've read that, for example, typically,
Yeah.
so the conclusion, I saw like a video, I remember.
Mhm.
The conclusion is that past, present, and future all exists.
Right. And this
Makes
is
sense.
exactly. And like, there's one important thing to arrive at that conclusion which is missing, which I think I have to tell you, otherwise it's too fast to get at that conclusion. Yeah. And which is this. So our normal view would be, there's the present and the future does not exist and the past does not exist. But this
Mhm.
already runs into trouble with even with special relativity from Einstein. Because because to have like an objective presence, you need a concept of simultaneity. Hard to pronounce this word. Simultaneous stuff.
Simultaneous. Sim-
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a global objective presence, there needs to be like an objective time where things can happen, like an objective simultaneity somehow. Maybe there's a different word for it. I hope it's like that if you have two events, that they happen and they happen at the same time for you, that they also happen at the same time for everyone else.
Hmm.
But that's not the case. So if that were the case, like if we like everything basically has its own time and its own concept of stuff happening at the same time. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's already contradicted in a way by special relativity that there's one presence. So in a way you have, so the like from the modern physics standpoint, the best model we have is really that what you just said, that time is sort of as real as space in a way. So and
Mhm.
it's already there all of time as space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's proven. It's not something we
yeah,
are just. It's not a
yeah,
hypothesis. It's
yeah,
proven with the.
yeah.
If you go fast on an airplane or on a
Hmm.
spaceship, you
Yes,
probably have a different time
yes,
than the guys on Earth. So
sure. Yeah, yeah.
which
That's
challenges? So does are we just hallucinating time and space? Do you think, Lucas? If they are
um
not if they are not very objective, if they are very subjective in a sense,
yes.
isn't
So
it
this
just a hallucination?
this is a very interesting question where I don't have a conclusive answer.
Mm,
If like I would, like, in my personal view, I would say it as I would see it as tools, like as like time and space are sort of tools which help us to manage experience
mhm,
and also to be able to survive in the end. No, like, because our brains are not optimized for truth; they are optimized
mm,
for not dying.
survival. Mhm,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for survival. So and so how, because we have a lot of, like, the world is really complex, and So in order to survive, what we need is to reduce complexity, to make things
Hmm.
simpler than they are, much more simple than they are. And space and time is it could be that space and time are sort of results of this complexity reduction,
Mm. Yeah.
right? It makes it much easier to navigate in the in reality by generating a simulation which is much more simple, which reduces complexity, so we can simulate it much more efficiently, and then we try to minimize prediction errors inside that simulation. Yeah,
Seriously. Very nerdy, but
that's what we
interesting.
do.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
and it makes a bit of sense if you take a butterfly that just lives for 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
does it feel that it lived for 2 days or for a century? I don't know. Like it's or doesn't it feel time at all, and it just lives in the present moment forever? So
Right.
that's very interesting, and something that you can connect to. Maybe probably you do a bit of meditation on your side as well, right? I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, so when you go into this meditative state, time and space don't make sense anymore. You're like more in a sort of no time zone that you can stay there for a long while, and it feels like 1 minute, but it's like maybe 30 minutes, right? Uh, so I don't know. From the further you go from the mind, from this survival instinct, to the less you are prone to be blocked by the time and space, in a sense.
Right. Yes, and that connects back to our definition of spirituality in the beginning, no? That it's sort of like a process which dissolves belief systems. And one of those belief
Mm.
systems is space-time. So in the deep state of
Yeah.
meditation, you basically dissolved. You can go beyond this concept of space-time, and you are still there. And this is like the amazing experience, in my view, that you can basically you go beyond concepts which you believe that which are sort of necessary for your existence, but they aren't.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
that's the liberating part. I mean, in my experience, at least, that you say like, okay, I am still there. I exist independent from that perception.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, Lucas, couple more questions, and then maybe we can call it a day. Um, we talk a lot about vibrations and energies in spirituality. Like we have a lot of different about frequencies, and so when you ask someone in this sort of area, someone doing a lot of spirituality work in, you know, they will talk about that everything is basically particles, and that particles do not exist; they are just vibrations. Uh, what do you think about this whole story, and is there any influence of between like energies of that we express as from spiritual side and the vibrations that particles and waves and so on are made of? Because ultimately, as you said, our body is not a body, it's just particles, and each particle is just vibrations. It's an atom with electron.
Mm.
It's 99% empty, right?
Y-
So what are
Yes, interesting question. So on the physics side, it's true, like at atoms and electrons and photons, which is basically almost everything which is our world is made up, our day-to-day
mm,
of our day-to-day experience. There are vibrations. That's true, and they behave like waves, and they do their wave stuff, and they appear as
mm,
tennis balls in a way. And also, and yeah, seeing and hearing and so on is a detection of vibrations.
mm,
Also, we have vibrations in our brain, no? Like we have like oscillations of neural excitations. We have these alpha, beta, gamma, delta waves, and so on.
yeah.
We can even measure them with an EEG. And um, so we have all the cycles in our body. We have day and night with the circadian rhythm and so on, which are all vibrations with low frequencies.
Mm,
And so the world is made out of vibrations. That's completely correct. That's completely true. Which is, but sometimes, like in a spiritual scene, people go one step too far, which is, for example, you certainly heard about the law of attraction, for example, no?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
Everybody
obviously.
knows it.
Yeah, maybe your audience too. So the law of attraction, basically like how it's stated often. I don't know how what's your view on it, but how it's stated
Mhm.
often is that you could, in principle, sit on your couch and visualize whatever a win in some lottery, and in a way, the if you do that correctly, like if you feel as if you have already won and so on, and you do that correctly, then the universe basically conspires, or the message gets sent out, and your vibrations get sent out, and you go in resonance with the universe in which you basically have won the lottery.
I see.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's how it's stated sometimes. So, and in my opinion, this is not how it works. So, because uh, I mean, like you could, like I think there is something to the law of attraction for sure, but it's more of a psychological effect than an effect
Yeah.
which really like influences by going into resonance with some imagined world, really like makes the universe conspire to fulfill your dreams. It's more of like in the moment you like these visualization techniques can be really helpful. No, like you sit down on
It
your couch and
conditions
you
your it conditions your mind in a sense to see more of what you're looking for,
exactly, yes, that's
right?
yeah. So it's sort of you program your subconscious to and you tell your subconscious where it gets its how it gets its dopamine, and then it helps you.
Mm. But
Yes,
then
sort of.
there's I agree
And you
with
have
this,
to
but
act.
there is
Yes, yeah. You have to act.
there,
It's not necessary to sit on the couch. It's not sufficient. I mean, yeah. Sorry.
I agree. You have to
Yeah.
take the action. But
Yes.
what is there is this spooky action at a distance that Einstein talks about, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's basically, and I saw it with some spirituals that doing pranic healing, for example, if you know pranic healing, so with energies and so on, like
Panic healing. How?
pranic healing.
Pranic healing, like with breath work and so on.
So basically, they say
Mhm.
you can as well visualize the person, for example, and you can try to heal him from a distance, right?
Mhm.
So basically, the idea that can you explain to us what is this? I don't know how do you remind me how do you call it in physics? This spooky
En-
action at a distance,
Entanglement.
entanglement effect, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
how does it work? It's very strange phenomena, but that was
it is.
proven
Yes.
recently.
Yeah.
So how
2016, I
does it?
think, was the.
Yeah,
Mhm.
how does it work, and why isn't it linked to this idea of visualizing and projecting your thoughts?
Yes.
In a
Okay. So yeah, okay. I could tell a very long story, but I will try to keep it short and simple. um okay, so entanglement is sort of the connection between possibilities. So
Mhm.
this is what entanglement is. Let's go to Schrödinger's cat. No, I will try to I will try to explain it in a very simple way with Schrödinger's cat. So first of all, Schrödinger's cat is a thought experiment. It's nothing we can really do in the lab, but we can do similar things with smaller stuff. And we just imagine now that we could really do it with a cat because, like, this is just like an example, and you could just use real physics stuff. But then I would use words you don't understand, so I would just use the word cat. And so we have this box where no information can go in and go out. And there's a mechanism in this box which can kill a cat. And it kills the cat with 50% probability. And it's attached to a quantum device. In this thought experiment, it's like a radioactive decay, which is a quantum process. And this radioactive decay can be decayed or and not at the same time. So if that thing is decayed, the cat dies. If it's not decayed, the cat lives. So if it's both at the same time, if it's decayed and not decayed at the same time, the cat is dead and alive at the same time. Okay, so this is what we call quantum superposition. This is like there are two possibilities. It's dead and alive, and they coexist. So
Interesting.
now imagine this is the same thing where you say like a particle goes through two doors. exactly
Hmm.
the same phenomenon. No? Like it goes to the left and to the right at the same time.
But is
Yeah.
there this superposition, just to understand for me as well?
Mhm.
Is it with probabilities? There is probability for this state and probability for another, or
The probabilities only come up if you look into the box. If you don't look into the box, they coexist and they are weighted. Like you can,
okay?
yeah. So they have like, so the probability then comes up if you ask the questions, what happens if I open the box? But
Hmm,
before you do that, there are no probabilities.
okay, interesting.
Yes. So they really coexist. And you can show
Okay.
with experiments that stuff coexists basically, which we would imagine to exclude each other, like
Mhm.
death and alive. Or for example, we can generate in the lab, we can generate light pulses which fly into two directions at once. And we can generate electricity which flies in clockworks and clockworks at the same time, or like
Interesting.
close. I mean, yeah, we can generate like little objects with spin in counterclockwise and in the other direction at the same time.
Mm,
We can also generate like vibrating, like how's this called, which makes sounds, like very little music instruments which play a note and are absolutely silent at the same time. And
cool.
so this we can really do in a lab, and we
Doesn't make
can,
too much sense from a rational perspective, like. But
yes, yes, yeah. But this is possible. And then the next step
okay.
is the next step is now entanglement. Entanglement happens when when something interacts with an object which is in such a superposition. For example, if we go to Schrödinger's cat, imagine death. No, like the cat is dead and alive at the same time, and now you have the great grim reaper. No, like death, who like this figure who likes dead things because it's his job to uh, to get the dead things and carry them whatever to hell or to heaven or whatever. I don't know. Like imagine this guy with the yeah, and he's very confused, no, because what is he supposed to do? The thing is dead and alive at the same time, and so if the death usually likes dead things, so he's probably happy when the cat if the cat is really dead, and he's very sad if the cat is alive because he has nothing to do. So the moment death interacts with this cat, he himself turns into a superposition. Now death is happy and sad at the same time.
Yeah, I see.
So
Interesting.
and now you have these possibilities connected. No, like if the cat
Mm,
is dead, dead is happy, death is happy. If the cat is alive, death is sad. And this connection of possibilities is called entanglement.
mm,
Yeah, and you can
okay.
show the interesting thing now is that you can now not separate the death and the cat anymore. You have one state which describes the combined system, death and cat, and you cannot, in principle, break it apart. If you break it apart, you miss very important correlations. And you could, in principle, also like imagine taking death and putting death like 2 million light years away or 2.5 million light years away on some Andromeda galaxy, and they are still connected. They are still one whole. And you
Okay,
could
interesting.
so and if you now on let's say you do that like it's a thought experiment. You
Mm,
do like death very far away, and he's basically there's this combined system of cat and death, the entangled state, you say. And now on Earth, you open the box and you find with 50% probability a dead cat, for example. That would make death instantaneously happy, even though he's very far away. And this is like the spooky action at a distance,
distance.
what Einstein didn't like. And like I used now death and the cat, and usually you do that with with like atomic particles and like or small glass spheres and so on. But this is exactly how it works. And Einstein
So
found
what's
that
the link with this?
very,
What's the
very,
link
very
with
strange.
spirituality?
Yes, so there is so people, of course, took this idea and now applied it to like psychic phenomena they want to be true, and try to explain it with quantum physics. And this is something what we call quantum woo. Now, quantum woo is a definition. It's like is a word which describes like all the attempts where you try to justify some belief, or some most of the beliefs are even irrational beliefs, with some strange reference to quantum physics no one understands. And
Okay.
so in other words, this is pseudoscience in a way. Like, there are no experiments which prove that. And all the
Mm.
experiments who were trying to prove that failed. And there are even, like, there's a lot of money you can make if you are able to transmit information that way. Nobody ever took that money. No, like, there was, maybe you know about James Randi.
Now you know what they give.
Yeah.
They give
Uh, uh,
examples of like twin brother and sister, or twins
uh, uh,
that feel the same pain distance away, or that's, I don't know, like a mother and a child. That's, the mother
yeah.
feels sick when the child is about to
Yes.
die or something.
In
So those are
yes.
like, mm,
Yes, in principle, there is no law of physics which forbids this. No? Like,
mm,
but you don't need quantum physics for that. You could imagine that you do that with like electromagnetism, like a radio. Why not? Like, you could imagine that the brain has a little radio inside, or a little smartphone, which basically connect.
yeah,
If you are close to someone, you are just sending electromagnetic waves out. Like, nobody has ever seen or measured such waves, and this is a complete speculation, but that would be like a physical, like an explanation for such phenomena, which does not involve quantum physics. So there is really no reason to use quantum physics for this kind of phenomena.
yeah, I see.
There's yet to be seen, like, it's yet to be seen if these phenomena really exist, or if it's selective perception, or if it's like anecdotal, because a million time, like, I don't know, like a mother, for example, thinks about her child constantly and is constantly in worry, and
Yeah, true.
and maybe worries like each day for 10 minutes, and then one day it died, and then the mother remembers, that's, I felt it, but maybe she's feeling it as every day, like, and
Yeah, I agree.
so we have to be careful to not jump to conclusions too fast. And my standpoint on this is that my personal opinion is that the most likely explanation is something completely normal, like something
Mm.
like a psychological explanation, but in the end we don't know. Probably nobody knows the
Yeah.
real answer to
I
that.
mean,
Yes.
I mean, that's the difference between a bit still
Yeah.
the bridge between, or difference between science and sort of the spiritual field, is that a lot of things that we express in the
Mhm.
spiritual area is mostly subjective. It's subjective experiences that do not necessarily follow the same pattern across people. So it depends on your background, on your
Mm.
conditioning, on many factors.
Yeah.
While science tries to find like rules, that this phenomena will follow no matter what are the variables, what are the.
Yeah, I mean, like science, the process of science, you can see more like very similar to evolution. Like, so in evolution, like, we try to, like, nature tries to test genes by trying to kill them,
Mm,
and if a gene survives, then it's a good gene. It's something which
yeah,
works.
true.
And then in science, it's very similar. Science, like, you guess ideas, and they come from intuition, and you
Mm.
have just ideas, and then you try to falsify them, you try to disprove
You
them,
have
you
to
try to
kill
detect them.
what's wrong. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And that which survives a lot of attacks, then turns into a trustable belief system.
I
And
see.
but you can never be sure, no, like, there's no such thing as being 100% sure in science.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
always.
even in science, there are a lot of
Yeah.
hypotheses, right? Sometimes that are not proven themselves. So,
Yes. Yeah.
Lucas, because like
Yeah.
I have to switch to another meeting, so let's just wrap it
Sure.
up if it's all right.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
okay. So, Lucas, last words before we finish this meeting. Thank you so much. It was very enlightening for people, I hope. Uh, so, tell us a bit about your current research in 2 minutes, then, and maybe some last words, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I already told that in the beginning about the current research. So so it's
Yeah,
about
okay,
like
thanks.
so it's about the finding fundamental research in quantum physics and trying to find the connection to gravity and to try to marry these two theories in the end is the big goal, and to test if gravity is quantum, like does gravity also obey the laws of quantum mechanics or not. This is sort of
So
like
it's
a
it's
big
part
goal.
of a it's part of
Mm.
this like theory of everything, right? That's what you're unifying both
That's what
sides.
we are after, yes. And we don't
Mm,
have like there are a lot of theoretical like ideas how to do that, but they are
mm,
all sort of don't really work, and they're all like very speculative. So
mm.
my opinion is we have to do an experiment first. Like we need an experiment before we can do the theory. Like
Okay.
because we can
Yeah.
explain all the experiments already with our theories.
Mm,
And so we
I
need
agree.
an experiment which we can't explain. And then we can make progress. So this is like sort of my philosophy with that. So that's why I,
Nice.
as a theoretical physicist, I work very close with experimental physicists, which is not very typical usually
Oh,
for
that's
that
it's
reason.
interesting.
No?
Yeah. Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
for that reason.
Okay.
And in the end, I might maybe make another one ad for the book Quantum Physics for Hippies. No, like if you're interested in this stuff, buy and read this book. Like you can also, it's also an optimal present for people who are maybe a dogmatic hippies or maybe are like very narrow-minded nerds, and all truth seekers for truth and meaning.
Mm.
If you like, if you only want your worldview, like uh, let's say if you need like reassurance for your own worldview, then don't buy this book. Then it might be dangerous. Also, it contains some
Very dangerous.
yeah, and also yeah, it contains some dark humor. So if you are very sensitive to that, then also don't buy that
Yeah, I'll just put it in the link.
book. Okay.
I think I
Yeah.
think it's worth exploring some
Mm,
science made
mm,
easy to combine
mm.
it with your spiritual path as well.
Yeah,
So it's very important.
yeah.
Okay.
It's actually a story from the perspective of a hippie, so it's very entertaining.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Lucas, thank you so much for this podcast. I really enjoyed this. I hope the guys will keep
Same.
something out of it at least and break down some of their misconceptions about quantum physics with spirituality. So thank you so much, and have a good day.
Was a
Thank you.
pleasure. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thanks. Likewise. Bye bye.